Hey, good morning, Pete, North Las Vegas. We are back on the 71 Camaro. I've got most of the engine wired up, and I'm getting ready to start on the fan controls. And these are going to be my fan relays, and this is a time delay relay for fan 2, which I'll talk about when we get there. Anyway, I'm just kind of getting the wiring sorted out and getting things labeled so I don't lose track of what I'm doing. I pretty much mapped out how I'm going to do it, and trying to identify the ignition power to the relays took me about a half an hour on the American Wire AutoWire fuse block, but we'll get into all that. Anyway, this is the air conditioning circuit, and this is the trinary switch, and these are the blue wires off of the trinary switch. And this trinary switch is going to be screwed into the dryer right here. And I said the blue wires are for fan control. And all it's doing is supplying a ground to one side of these relays to allow the relays to fire on the ground side. So I have the blue wires coming off the trinary, and I'm putting a fan system auto switch in. That's what I decided to call it. And this is going to be inside the car. And these three switches are to control the fans. With fans and system auto in the on position, that allows the AC to control the fans. If I want to isolate the AC from turning the fans on, I just turn this switch off. And that's going to be this switch right here. So that will eliminate the ground through the trinary switch and isolate the AC. And I just decided to do that as I don't know, just kind of an added feature. And then so anyway, I have fan 1 and fan 2 relay, and that's these two here. And this time delay relay I was talking about at the beginning of the video clip. I don't want both of my fans to come on at the same time. So what I did was I went out and bought this delay relay, and I'm going to have about a 2-second delay before fan 2 comes on. And the reason for that was I just didn't want to put a big huge load on the alternator all at the same time. I'm running twin spalls, and if I remember right, these things they draw close to about 18, almost 20 amps each. Just for normal operation, but you also have inrush current. So when they initially turn on, they're going to hammer the electrical system. So I didn't want to turn them on both at the same time, but I did want them to eventually come on at the same time. I live in the Southwest in Las Vegas, and getting 110, 15, sometimes even 120 plus temps around here for weeks on end is not that unusual in the summertime. So anyway, because I live in the Southwest, I want both fans to come on, either to cool the engine for the air conditioning. And so that's my decision for that. Now, I know they sell solid state units out there, and I'm kind of going old school. And the reason I decided to use relays instead of some kind of solid state controller like Dakota Digital puts out, or Duralia or whatever. If something should go wrong, I want to be able to replace a relay if I'm on the road, if I need to stop into an AutoZone or an O'Reilly's or Checkers or whatever. If I need to replace a relay, it's something I can do pretty quickly. Whereas if I go with something solid state, something more custom, it might be a little bit more of an issue to get it fixed. Have to get online and order a new module. Not everybody sells those things. Okay, so I'll just kind of walk through how I'm planning on doing all of this at the same time. It's a little bit confusing if I do it piecemeal. So anyway, we already talked about the system auto on-off switch that isolates the AC and keeps the AC from turning on the fans, if that's what I choose. And I also put in some manual switches. So I have a manual fan 1 and a manual fan 2 to turn the fans on, supplying a ground. And on fan 2, I bypassed the time delay. So if I want the fan to come on manually, I figured I don't need to put the time delay in there. I'm just going to turn them on one at a time, so I don't really need the delay relay in there. And so in any other time though, that fan 2 will take about 2 to 3 seconds to come on after fan 1 has come on. So here's my engine temp switch. That's going to supply the ground to the relays for the fans, and this is set to come on at, if I remember right, 205 and shut off at 195 or something like that. And this is a sending unit. This is not a temperature switch, but a sending unit. I'm going to be running Dakota Digital instrumentation, so this is their setup here. So switch, temperature indicator, or sender. So anyway, that's the temp switch there. And like I said, I have fan 1 manual on and fan 2 manual on to supply separate grounds. So I just spent like a half an hour trying to verify that this wire here, I don't know if you can read that, but it says electric fan, and that comes out of the off the firewall. And I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm pretty sure it's switched power, as in ignition power, but I wanted to verify that because I'm verifying everything as I go along. I'm not completely 100% trusting that everything on this kit is correct. So anyway, it took me a little while to figure out that was actually switched, and it's switched from battery power on the ignition switch to the big heavy gauge brown wire. And I'll try to show you that here inside the car. Okay, so this plugs into the ignition switch, and I don't really have a whole lot of light here, but this wire is brown, and it's a big heavy gauge. And here's your hot run-in for your battery, and then they jump over to another battery. I think this is accessories. This is your main hot run-in for your battery, and this brown wire goes to the other side of that 30 amp fuse where it says fan up there. And so the brown wire comes in on one side of that, and then they jump the brown wire to a couple other spots on the fuse block. Now on the other side of this 30 amp fuse, that's the orange wire that comes out at the firewall that says electric fan on it. So the first thing I had to do this morning, and it took me about a half an hour, maybe an hour, I just wanted to verify that brown wire was in fact what fed this electric fan. So now that I've positively identified that this definitely is switched in the run position, it is not switched in the ignition position or the accessory, only the run position. So I will only have power to my fan relays when this ignition switch is in run, which is what I want. So orange electric fan. These are the orange wires off the relay, and they're labeled ignition. Okay, so we got power coming in on one side of the relays, and then we have battery power yellow, which will be hooked up to the battery obviously, and that's these two wires here. So this is your high side of the battery, and then on the other side of the relay, 87, we have actually two orange wires, and these are fused. And yeah, so that's the orange wire right there. I got a little arrow pointing to orange and fuse. And then that's going to go to these the red wires on the fan, and these plug into some connectors that are already hooked up to the fan. Sorry about my camera work, but there's one of the connectors there. So this connector plugs into the other side, and then the orange off of the relay becomes red to the fan. So we got all that. Now what are we going to use to actually fire the relay? We're gonna supply a ground on pin 85, and sorry about the noise, garbage day. So that's these gray wires here, And they're labeled sending unit, but I don't know, it's debatable if that's what you want to call them. But anyway, that's going to be these two gray wires here that fire the relays. And then, like I said, I'm going to put this in front of fan 2 relay, and that'll be a 2-second delay. Okay, well, hopefully I explained this in a way that made sense. I know I was kind of jumping around a little bit, but anyway, that's how I plan to do it. And so now it's just, you know, actually wired up. I've got some terminal blocks I got to mount, and I got a battery. I don't know what I did with it, but I got some other stuff for the battery power. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, for the battery power to these two yellow batteries to the relay, I'm going to be running this heavy gauge wire underneath the front here, and that'll go over to the battery. This is also a fusible link, so I just decided, just for some extra insurance, besides fuses on the fuse block, fuses on the high side of the relay to the fans, I'm also, the power feed to the relays is going to have a fusible link in case something goes terribly wrong. Okay, so one final note was, this is where the original horn relay went, and American AutoWire moved the horn relay inside the cab. So I had a little extra real estate here. And this is where the old original voltage regulator went. And it took me a while to figure out where I was going to put the relays. I thought I had, you know, all kinds of real estate. But every time I decided to put a relay somewhere, it was going to block some other screw hole or block some access to a bolt. And I still had some other stuff, like I said, that I'm going to have to install. So you'd think all this real estate's sitting there, but it's really not as much as you think. But anyway, like I said, hopefully I explained this in a way that made sense. And Pete, North Las Vegas, over and out.